A reading from Luke 10:30 through 34. Jesus replied, "A man was going down from Jerusalem to Jericho and fell into the hands of robbers, who stripped him, beat him, and took off, leaving him half dead. Now by chance a priest was going down that road, and when he saw him, he passed by the other side. So likewise a Levite, when he came to the place and saw him, passed by the other side. But a Samaritan, while traveling, came upon him, and when he saw him, he was moved with compassion. He went to him and bandaged his wounds, treating him with oil and wine. Then he put on his own animal, brought him to the inn, and took care of him." A reading from Acts 2:43 through 45. Awe came upon everyone because of many wonders, and signs were being done throughout the apostles. All who believed were together and had all things in common. They would sell their possessions and goods and distribute the proceeds to all as they had need.
Sheesh. It's one of the rarest yet most enchanted words in the human lexicon. Sheesh. Have you ever spoken it? It's the sound of eyebrows lifting, of goosebumps bumping, of the heart fluttering, the sound of a sigh that has learned to dance. It forms in our chest like a balloon of disbelief and slips out between our teeth like a ribbon of air, carrying a mixture of amazement, exasperation, reverence, and an "are you serious?" all at once. Sheesh. A small single word that expresses the immensity and ineffability of all that we do not know and cannot conceive. It says there's more to this world than I had ever imagined, and more than I can scarcely comprehend. Can you name a recent sheesh experience in your life? A time when you encountered a mystery, a revelation, a light bulb moment that transcended your understanding of the world? My 1-year-old grandson, Weston, gave me several sheesh moments during our visit last week. He can now crawl faster than I can run and play hide and seek. He can hack my phone and post on Snapchat while he's playing hide and seek. Sheesh. But the most sublime, even mystical moments of awe that occurred all week happened at his bedtime, when I held him in my arms and rocked him to sleep with a bottle of milk in the dim quiet of his nursery. How can such ordinary moments be so replete with wonder and transcendence? A few years ago, I camped with my son, Casey, near Mount Princeton in Colorado here. On our first night, in the fading glow of the campfire, Casey gazed up at the starlit sky and let out an audible gasp. After a lifetime of living in the suburbs blinded by light pollution, he had never seen before such a breathtaking display of the night sky. Millions of pulsars and planets, like luminous diamonds and pearls, flashed and flitted against the black velvet plush of space. Shooting stars darted across the universe. The Milky Way shimmered and arched its back, stretching from one end of the galaxy to the other. And we both gazed at that spectacle for hours, transfixed and speechless. Sheesh. Modern life can feel so devoid of awe and wonder. Screens, social media, influencers, cable news, talking heads, they all demand more of our attention and devotion these days. And they often reinforce our most cynical assumptions about the world and train us to expect the worst and sneer at the rest. Beauty passes before us unnoticed. Novelty is lost in the noise. Our sheesh becomes a shrug. And we get so caught in these loops of reactivity and distraction that we mistake monotony for normal, while awe and wonder grow rare. Now, more than ever, we need practices that open our eyes and ears to awe wherever it happens. We need habits that teach us to recognize wonder whenever it reaches for us. But what are we even talking about when we speak of awe or wonder? The German theologian Rudolf Otto once referred to it as the mysterium tremendum. He said that awe consists of two experiences. One, the sensation of trembling, which comes from being in the presence of something overpowering and vibrantly alive. And two, the sensation of mystery, which evokes feelings of being astonished or thunderstruck. In other words, awe is a feeling of trembling and reverence that washes over us whenever we encounter a mystery that transcends our understanding of the world. It leaves us feeling humbled and small. It takes out our ego at the kneecaps. It connects us to something much larger than ourselves. And how does it find us, or how do we find it? In his wonderful book, Awe, Dr. Keltner notes that the most common experience of awe, reported by people from all over the world, East and West, is what's called moral beauty. Moral beauty is the kind of beauty we perceive in other people's goodness and courage, compassion, and overcoming. When, for example, someone does what is right or kind without seeking credit or reward. When someone speaks the truth at a personal cost to themselves. Or when someone acts with compassion toward the vulnerable or helpless. Or when someone overcomes adversity, injustice, or improbable odds. Moral beauty reveals the exceptional virtue and character and ability that we see operating in the actions of others. Actions that are marked by a purity and goodness of intention. And haven't we all been moved, awestruck perhaps, when we witnessed in others a purity of intention and action, this loveliness of a life oriented toward goodness? Maybe we've seen it in a bystander running into danger to help someone in need, or parents raising a child with a serious health condition, a whistleblower exposing the truth at great personal cost, a cancer survivor ringing the bell as she leaves the hospital, a Special Olympics athlete standing on the podium to receive his medal. It's called moral beauty, and it evokes awe more than any other human experience. When we see it at work in others, it can make us feel smaller and less egocentric, more alive and connected, more inspired to go and do likewise. Which is why our parable from today's scripture reading is so universally well known and beloved. The parable of the Good Samaritan is a story marked by moral beauty. It's a call to look for moral beauty in the world and to honor it when we see it and to feel its impact in ourselves and to practice it whenever the opportunity arises. We all know the story of the Good Samaritan. If there's one character in all of Scripture, other than Jesus, whose name has made its way into mainstream American culture, it's this fictional guy known as the Good Samaritan. His name is ubiquitous in our culture today. When an ordinary citizen performs a heroic deed for someone in distress, we call that person a Good Samaritan. There are in many states laws named after the Good Samaritan that grant legal protection to those whose rescue attempts result in accidental injury. There's even a decal on the backs of RVs bearing the image of a smiley-faced man with a golden halo above his head. That decal signifies membership in the Good Sam Club, someone you can depend on in a roadside emergency, like the one this traveler endures in our parable today. You heard the story. While on a road trip, a man is ambushed by thieves, robbed, beaten, dumped in a ditch, left for dead. It's an awful story, but we think someone will come to his aid, right? Well, it turns out that a Methodist minister passes by who sees the man lying in a ditch and feels pretty bad for the guy. But the minister's late for a board of trustees meeting, and so he keeps on going. Someone else will surely come along, he figures. And moments later, that someone is another religious person. In fact, none other than Joel Osteen himself, sitting behind the wheel of his Bentley. And he too feels badly for the guy, but he's late for a hair appointment, and so he keeps going too. But then a third traveler comes along, and he sees the man, and he stops. This is kind of a shocker in this part of the story, because this guy is, according to Jesus, is actually from California. And take it from me, you'd never expect someone from California to stop. But according to Jesus, this Californian is moved with compassion, feels compelled to do something. So he binds the man's wounds, gets him a room, calls for a doctor. And if it's not astonishing enough that a Californian would do all this, Jesus says the guy even gives his credit card to the hotel clerk and says, hey, whatever the cost, just charge it. And we say, sheesh. I get goosebumps, actually, every time I read this story. In fact, sometimes I don't even want to hear the punchline, the part where Jesus says, go and do likewise, because there is something so extraordinary and beautiful at work in this story. Can you see it in your mind's eye? Are you moved by this unfolding scene of an ordinary person so moved with compassion that he drops what he's doing and actually reaches out and physically touches, a complete stranger? Can you see him bending down, reaching for a hand, speaking words of comfort, gently bandaging the man's wounds, all without calculation, without assuming that anyone is watching or that a trophy or medal will be awarded them afterward? Can you see what it looks like when someone responds to real human need with a purity of intention and action, a devotion to doing what is good and right? It's called moral beauty, and it's breathtaking whenever we behold it. But one of the problems with this parable is that we assume that the whole point, as Jesus says, is to go and do likewise. And that's clearly a directive here. We should all be good Samaritans, don't get me wrong. But before we march out of here in search of someone to help, what if we hear the parable first, not as an imperative to go and do likewise, but as an invitation to sit and behold, to witness, to be moved and influenced by the real life stories of those all around us who, in their own unique way, in their own unique corner of the world, are doing the work of the Good Samaritan, which is the work of moral beauty. Perhaps before we go and do, we are called to behold and learn. Before we try to exemplify moral beauty in the world, maybe we first need to be awed by it. I wonder if this is what distinguishes the Samaritan from these two religious people who failed to stop and help. The Samaritan seems to understand and feel something that these two others just don't. It's not that they're ignorant people. They know what God requires of them. They know the right thing to do here. Maybe they're simply following their holy laws, which grant them a free pass when it comes to dealing with people who are bleeding, which, in their case, makes them ritually impure. But still, they must know deep in their souls what the right and compassionate thing to do is here. Only they choose not to do it. Something is missing that their religion alone can't or hasn't done for them. What is that? I wonder if it comes down to this. We are all profoundly shaped by what we see in the world. And what we spend our lives seeing or beholding ultimately determines who we become. Our character is largely shaped by what we choose to pay attention to. We become what we behold, said the poet William Blake. Our focus over time shapes our character. The word character originates from the Greek word character. In ancient times, a character was actually a stamping tool that was used to impress an image onto a coin. When ancient Christians spoke about character, they compared the human soul to a wax tablet that took on the shape of whatever images were impressed upon it. Wax is pliable, it's moldable, it doesn't have a shape of its own. It's formed by stamps or seals that imprint their distinct images on the warm wax. To become a certain kind of person, we choose certain images to imprint upon our soul. We become what we behold. We become what we adore. We call this character formation or a spiritual formation. It's the process of being formed by some power outside of ourselves and then bearing its image and likeness. And we are all being formed by something, by the images that are impressed upon us, by what we choose every day to behold. And the question is, what are we spending our lives beholding? Are we being shaped by the patterns and images of this age that we see on Facebook and Instagram, cable news and partisan outrage reels, Netflix binging sprees, and even Calvin Klein underwear ads? Or are we being shaped by beauty, shaped by beholding beauty in the forms of kindness, and acts of courage, selfless love and sacrifice, the overcoming of adversity exemplified in the lives of others? Why does the Samaritan in the story stop while the others do not? Well, maybe the Samaritan knows what the great Russian novelist Fyodor Dostoevsky once said, that beauty will save the world. Maybe the Samaritan has beheld the power of that truth in the lives of so many others, that he himself has come now to practice it in his own life. This is how the whole movement called Christianity first began, according to the book of Acts. It says awe came upon everyone because many wonders and signs were being done through the apostles. And then it says, day by day, the Lord added to their number those who were being saved. Moral beauty is communal. It's contagious. By beholding it in the wonders and signs of others, we are stamped and sealed and formed as Christians, just as those early Christians were filled with awe and saw their whole movement spread like wildfire. So can I give you a simple assignment this week, a spiritual practice to cultivate awe and wonder in your life? It's this. Look for moments of moral beauty. Try this week to identify just one expression of moral beauty every day. Behold it. Meditate on it. Let it make its impression on you. They appear in all kinds of forms and expressions. As I reflected this week on some moments of moral beauty that have shaped me, I called to mind a woman who, at the peak of her career as a corporate executive, took an extended leave to become the primary caretaker for her dying mother. I remembered one day watching this couple who, while having lunch in an outdoor courtyard in San Diego, invited a drifter who had been begging from table to table to sit and eat lunch with them. I remember two little girls in my first church, 6 and 4 years old, I think they were. who, in the middle of a campaign to raise money to build our church, carried their piggy bank to the altar as an offering to God. I remembered a family who, on Christmas Eve, forgave and welcomed home a wayward husband and father after a long and bitter betrayal. Sheesh. It's the kind of stuff that makes the eyebrows lift and the heart flutter, and the breath catch in our chest, and the sigh, which learns how to dance, if, of course, we've slowed down long enough to behold it. Because moral beauty is not rare in this world, it's just easy to miss. It appears quietly, without hashtags or headlines. It doesn't ask to be admired, it just shows up. It just shows up and it binds wounds, and shares bread, and bears burdens, and forgives what seems unforgivable, and walks away without waiting for applause. And when we behold it, it does something to us. It does something in us. It impresses an image into the wax of our souls. It forms us slowly and faithfully into people who will stop when others pass by. People who will reach down when it would be easier to look away. People who will respond not out of calculation, but out of compassion. So this week, watch for it. Be awed by it. Let your sheesh become a prayer as the moral beauty that you behold begins to shape who you are becoming. Our takeaways for today: awe comes not only from the stars above us, but from the goodness beside us. We become what we behold. And before we go and do likewise, we are called to stop and see.